Hello and welcome to the Rugby Show on the 42.ie, coming at you live here on Facebook from our newsroom in Dublin. Well, coming into today's decisive Lions test, we were warned that immortality beckoned for this crop of 2017. It may not have quite come to fruition, but I guess the Lions did prove that the greatest team in the history of rugby are mere mortals after all. My name is Gavin Casey and I'm delighted to be joined as per usual by our man on the ground. Today he was in Auckland to witness the madness. It is the man himself, Murray Kinsella. Murray, what the hell happened there?
Yeah, still wrapping my head around it here, and I think some of the players are as well, kind of bemused looks on their faces, coming in with a beer in hand, not knowing whether they should be celebrating or kind of ruining a missed opportunity. I think there's a bit of both for both teams, that both feel they had chances to go and win that test series. And the final whistle said it all. I think some of the players didn't actually know what was going to happen. Some of them thought there might actually be extra time. They hadn't really, as a professional rugby player, you don't think about these kind of games in terms of possibly drawing, and it was just bizarre, and it just summed up a crazy but brilliant game of rugby. Absolutely mental scenes towards the end. You mentioned there the players thinking that there was extra time. Like, that was what was striking about the final whistle being blown, because it seemed, to be honest, it seemed as though even Romain Poite was a little bit indecisive with his final whistle. Like, there was over a minute elapsed beyond 80 minutes. He blew the whistles sort of tentatively. The players were sort of looking around. It was subdued. So, and then you hear Sam Warburton certainly in his post-match interview with Sky Sports over here, was saying, well, I didn't know where we're going to go to extra time, what was going to happen. Jonathan Davis mentioned a potential replay. I don't know if Parky Queeve is going to be open in time next Sunday, but incredible that they just didn't really know what was going on. Yeah, it's incredible that the series can end that way, really. I think we're going to definitely see a change in that regard. Even post-match, we're talking to Warren Gatland and suggesting maybe they play again in November.
Wow.
Another match, and he said, yeah, why not? He was joking about the Premiership players obviously not being released for that. But I think that's a bit tongue-in-cheek, but I think there's a genuine point there. We'll need to see a change, because I don't think in this day and age a drawn series is satisfying for anyone. I think all the players given a chance would have played again, or even played a bit extra time, although I don't think Tyke Furlong was too keen. He said his legs were cramping up, and the front row union maybe would have been against it. But I think we're going to see a change in the future. I think we're going to see something happen whereby it doesn't happen again, a drawn series. Really, really rare, obviously, and definitely needs to change.
Yeah, big time, because I think the last one was 1955, but they did change it slightly in the sense that was over 4 games. They drew that series 2-all. The idea of moving to 3 games, I thought, was to find a conclusion, but I guess they just didn't legislate for the possibility that a team would win a test each and then draw the last one, or one of them.
Yeah, and that says it all. I don't think we really considered the Lions coming back into this. When they lost that first test, I think we all felt this is going the way very much we thought it had, and possibly a 3-0 test series win for the All Blacks. So a lot of credit goes to the Lions. They've drawn, but they've actually achieved something quite remarkable over here by beating the All Blacks at home. First time they've been defeated here since 2009 in that second test, and then drawn the series. It's a really, really strong achievement from Gatland again, and he has his critics and people question every single decision he makes. He's come out with the last laugh, and he actually came into the press conference today just after the game with a clown's red nose on, and laugh about that. And he spoke again about having had those kind of personal attacks on him a bit and how disappointing that was. But yeah, he's a spiky character. He's well up to have a laugh, and I think he's done a good job here. Again, it's a really hard job to bring people together that quickly in 6 weeks, and he's certainly achieved that. And it gave us a brilliant test series, which is what the Kiwis wanted too, and they're all delighted as well. Obviously, they're not too happy not to have won it, but they're just thrilled with how this whole thing, this whole event has gone, and the magnitude of it, probably bringing in quite a lot of new fans to rugby as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I suppose you mentioned there that the Kiwis being disappointed. Maybe it hasn't quite hit home yet what's happened, but I'm maybe slightly surprised that there wasn't more of a backlash towards that decisive penalty or non-penalty towards the end, where Romain Poite changed his mind ultimately. We were trying to make sense of it here in the office. We were looking at footage of it. It's up inside at the moment, where we were trying to see if Sam Warburton had maybe influenced his decision, but it seems kind of inexplicable. Firstly, what were your thoughts on the incident? And I might ask you a couple more things on top of that.
Yeah, I thought it was a penalty. I thought it was I thought he bottled the decision. I thought the All Blacks should have had to kick a goal. I'd say Bowden Barrett was almost probably a bit relieved he didn't have to take that shot. He's wobbly off the tee again. But I thought it was a penalty. I thought it was pretty disgraceful decision, actually. He backed out of it in a big moment. I think at any other stage of the game, it would have been a penalty straight away, no questions really asked. And I think everyone would have accepted. Now we're getting people looking at the law, saying is it 11.6 in the rule book, whereby the player can't avoid getting in the way of the ball. To me, Ken Owens could have avoided actually making contact with the ball. He reaches out and it's instinctive. He didn't decide, I'm going to prevent the All Blacks from playing here. But that's the law of the game. He prevented the All Blacks getting a possible advantage. And maybe the thing is we need to look at that law, because it does happen very often and you go, that's so unfair on the player. It's just instinct. Yeah. But it was a penalty for me. It was a penalty. It was a knock-on and a player picked it up, he reached for it, preventing the opposition gaining an advantage. So I thought it was a penalty, and I thought they should have a shot at goal.
Yeah, I completely agree. And like, what struck me was the fact that, as you mentioned, he reaches out. He actually does catch the ball momentarily, and he makes a conscious decision to drop it because he realizes what he's done. So, like, yeah, the catching of the ball or the gathering of the ball might have been instinctive, but ultimately, like, you can't really put that down as an accident. It wasn't accidental, you know. It was, as we said, subconscious. So it's just baffling. But, like, I don't know if you've heard anything from over there, like, as to why Romain Poit would have changed his mind. I mean, you tweeted yourself, actually, that had it happened at any other point in the game, he would have stuck with his decision.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to get a chance to speak to Romain Poit, obviously. He's the only one who can answer it, because they went to the TMO review, and he actually kind of clarified that this is a penalty. You know, Georgia Yu gave him that feedback. This is a penalty. He says again, this is a penalty. And he goes across to award it again for a second time and suddenly changes to a scrum. I think there's been some suggestion that one of his assistant refs was maybe getting in his ear, suggesting that it was an accidental offside, but it was just an easy out. It was a big decision at an important time of the game. And look, everyone makes mistakes.
Yeah.
In those heated moments at the end of a game, and I just, for me, it was the wrong decision, and I can understand why the All Blacks would be very angry about it. They handled it really well after the game. You know, Steve Hansen made it pretty clear that he's got this decision wrong. He said, we all know what should have happened, but he didn't quite openly criticise him, and he didn't heap the defeat just on that moment. He said, we had chances to score, and that's absolutely true. I actually thought the All Blacks should have been out of sight in that first half. They had an incredible number of chances. And to me, it felt like the Lions were barely clinging on. Even after 5 minutes, you know, Julian Savea drops the ball cold on the left wing when the try line's just waiting there for him. So those things were as big. But if we're going to talk about that penalty, for me, it was all wrong.
Yeah, big time. I think a lot of people would agree with that as well. We obviously, as per usual, have a couple of comments for you over there, Murray, from people watching at home and people who've been in contact earlier today. So cheers for that. I might start with this one from IOR1111. Love the usernames on the 42. I'm still getting used to them, by the way. But he says, or he or she says, "Hi Murray, what do you think the Lions could have done differently to get this series win? Personally, I thought Henderson could have been great as an impact sub," says IOR1111.
Yeah, there are many things in that. There are probably different ways that Warren Gatland could have gone with his selection. I think he decided early on how he wanted his team to look tactically. And to me, it was picked really well in terms of the strengths of his squad. A lot of focus around kicking and being aggressive in defence. And he picked the big hitters, I guess, for that job. Guys like Maro Toje. I actually thought there's one error maybe in selection, that he should have started that first test. And just given more energy and drive to everything the Lions did defensively as well. But I guess if you're looking at ways they could have won it, they possibly could have been a little bit more adventurous in their tactical kind of attacking approach. It was very structured, and they did play some nice rugby, and they scored that incredible try in the second test, which was one of the best Lions tries ever. But I think maybe just being a little bit looser in their attacking play maybe might have helped a little bit. But the point about Ian Henderson is valid. He was very unlucky not to feature, maybe even off the bench. I think there'll be a lot of guys who go home very disappointed about that, and someone like Peter O'Mahony, who was captain in the first test and ends up on the sidelines watching on, not even involved in the second two. So pretty notable kind of fall from grace for him there. But yeah, like I don't think you can be very critical of Gatland. I think he did approach this the way the Lions should have in terms of the strengths of the players in the squad. And to me, I think it would be kind of unfair to really pick out what he did wrong.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. There's a question here from EK, maybe a more simple question. I'm not sure if you've given it thought yet or had a chance to, but he's wondering, or she is wondering, who was your player of the tournament, or player of the series?
I think Sean O'Brien for me was right up there. It was a shame he didn't come back out for the second half. He's got a bit of a shoulder issue. I think he's going to go for scans, so fingers crossed for him, because we saw on this tour what a force he is when he's got to run of games, when he's fully fit. We saw him sprint faster than he has done for years over here, and he was aggressive in every single aspect, really strong ball carrying, good footwork. He even offloaded, he got some breakdown competition. A really strong all-round series from him. Another guy I was really impressed with, again, was Jonathan Davies. Maybe a little bit of an unsung hero. He's kind of quiet in what he does, but you saw tonight when the Lions needed big moments, defensively particularly, he smashed Jordy Barrett twice, made some really good reads in the outside channels, and probably shut down a lot of the All Blacks attacking width without that being noticed, because they didn't actually go there. He's getting up out of the line and closing off that, shutting that door. So again, he was one of the really impressive performance for me. But the Irish guys had a good tour generally. You know, we mentioned Henderson and O'Mahony being disappointed. Obviously, Payne and Henshaw as well had the injury problems. But Sexton was back somewhere near his best, and he had to battle to finish that game. I don't think he wanted to come off, and looked like a pretty sore ankle injury they played through, and then passes his HIA and comes back again, absolutely battling through it. And Tyke Furlong as well, really impressive over here. I think those who didn't know, maybe some of the Kiwis weren't fully aware of how good he is, but by hell they are now. He was really good around the pitch. Some maybe scrummaging moments where he'll have learned from playing against Joe Moody an awful lot in the last few weeks, but he was right up there as well. But I think if I had to pick one guy, Sean O'Brien, before that injury, it was unfortunately timed, and certainly I think the Lions would have had a better chance with him still on the pitch.
Yeah, for sure. It's hard to disagree with that one. I'm actually going to piggyback a little bit on a question here from Pete Slattery, who asks, how did the Lions manage to come through the series with so few injuries, considering how attritional the modern game is and how brutal games against New Zealand can be? Now, I should point out that there was a response to this question from somebody called Johnny, who said, Murray's a journalist, Pete, not a doctor. But one of the things that is fascinating about this tour is the fact that the Lions were relatively fortunate with injuries. And I think a massive component of the argument as to the future of the Lions, or whether it should be dissolved as a concept, was this notion that players are under contract at clubs, they're going away on this tour and they're coming back, and a lot of them are crocked, and they're basically not able to perform for their employers. And even though we know the clubs are on board with the Lions, it was a point of contention. I'm wondering, given the success of this tour, can this debate now about the future of the Lions sort of be put to bed? I think most people enjoyed it. The players certainly did, and it was massive in New Zealand.
Yeah, I think the Lions just winning the second test kind of evaporated that debate, really. There certainly needs to be adjustments made, and Gatland said it straight afterwards. They need more preparation time. He wonders how good the Lions could have been with an extra couple of weeks or a little bit more exposure to the players, getting those coaching methods through. You talk about the injuries, there still have been a few. You know, it's interesting to think of what might happen actually if Billy Vunipola had been down here. Probably the Lions' #1 player really before the tour. He was going to be immense down here, I think. I think they wonder what might have been if he was there. Other guys like Henshaw go home and he's going to miss the start of next season. But no, it has been a good tour in terms of those injuries overall. I think the coaching staff, the S&C guys, have done a really good job, and Phil Morrow, actually an Ulsterman, has been kind of in charge of that area, and they've trained at a very intense level. A lot of the players have been speaking about how high tempo training has been short, snappy, so they're getting that kind of conditioning into their bodies, and they're not getting those kind of little niggly muscular strains over here. They've been lucky as well. It's pure luck when you're not getting those big impact injuries, because like some of the hits in this series were off the charts. I'd love to see the GPS stats for some of those collisions, but it's just luck. You don't get your leg caught in the ground when someone hits you, and there's certainly an element of that. But in terms of that overall point about the Lions living on, I think that's beyond any doubt. It's an incredible part of rugby, really unique part of rugby that other sports don't have, and all the Kiwi players, you know, that's going to be remembered as one of the biggest moments in their lives playing this series, and likewise for the Lions boys, and likewise for all the fans. It's been absolutely incredible over here. The atmosphere around Auckland this weekend, again, just sensational, and I'm already looking forward to the next one in 4 years' time.
Yeah, big time. I think there's a lot of people in the same boat there. It was fascinating actually to see Kieran Reid. I mean, this was his 100th cap, and a monumental moment for him. A bit of a giveaway in his post-match interview on UK and Irish TV, in that he described it as a defeat. And actually, I think you might have done that yourself earlier on in this video, where you were speaking from the perspective of New Zealand. So it is interesting to see how they're treating this. But I was maybe a little bit taken by the fact that the Lions were a little bit disappointed by it initially anyway, certainly from what we saw on TV. Have they kind of come around to the idea that they actually did achieve something fairly magnificent here, even if they didn't win the series?
Yeah, I definitely think that was the impression. I think when guys immediately come off the pitch, there's always going to be that disappointment. Even another half an hour and you meet them in the mix zone afterwards and you're chatting to them and it's clear they've been celebrating. A few of the boys had a bit of beer all over the shoulders from a bit of celebrating down the change rooms, and I think they're happy with what they've done down here. It's obviously not the finish they would have ideally wanted, but it is a big achievement. I think they're going to be pleased with that. I think Gatland's going to be proud of what his side have done. I think the Kiwis probably have more right to be disappointed with it. They were the heavy favourites, and we knew. I mean, we wrote about this in the 42. There was going to be a big question asked of their kind of mental fortitude and their leadership in this game, and maybe they came up a little bit short there. You know, they had big chances to win the game. They didn't put it away. You know, Bowden Barrett, he was unbelievable last year, but we're seeing that there's frailties in his game, even if he is the most sensational attacking player and someone you buy a ticket to go and watch because he's so good. But his place kicking is poor, and it was really costly at times in this series. So there are questions there. I think the All Blacks now know that they have a hell of a lot of improving to do with this current group. They were unlucky to miss Dane Coles and Ben Smith as well for most of the series. Those guys would have been big leaders, but I think Kieran Reid is probably right to be disappointed with how it's worked out for them, having been massive favourites. We also should mention, I think Kieran Reid probably should have gone for HIA. He got an elbow to the head at once, and the Alan Wynne-Jones thing. Warren Gatland says he passed the HIA, and I think that just underlines again that the HIA is probably not fit for purpose. You know, it was quite clear on the video evidence, and they're supposed to remove guys when there's a suspicion of concussion. He was very wobbly after that collision, and he comes back on later in the game. I don't think that's I just think that's a problem for rugby. It didn't look good again tonight, and having said that, this series brings in so many new viewers. I think that kind of incident probably turns people off rugby a little bit as well. So I think there's a lot of work to be done in that regard.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we mentioned Sexton there a minute ago, and when he was being taken off for his own HIA, it was striking that he was effing and blinding on his way off the pitch. I guess he maybe felt, you know, it's because it's me that this is happening. It was an innocuous enough blow, but then you see some of these massive hits and it's not called upon, it's not acted upon. It is kind of frightening. But on the topic of Sexton, actually, Murray, there's a question here from Ollie Watson, who was wondering, what do you perceive as the difference between him and Owen Farrell as players? I guess as fly halves, really.
Yeah, I think we saw in the like, for me, Johnny Sexton was kind of pulled in to almost save the series for the Lions. You know, Farrell got the shot at 10 in the first game, and he didn't really impress. I thought he was, you know, obviously incredible composure to nail that penalty to level the game, and his kicking off his tee was good, but I thought he had a very poor first half here tonight, and he made some big errors, you know, kicking out on the full, a knock on in the 22. Obviously that missed chance early in the first half when the Lions had an overlap in the kind of far right corner, and he got picked off by Jordy Barrett. So some big moments for him, maybe learning how to kind of manage a game of this magnitude. He's obviously achieved quite a lot with England, but a lot of that has been at 12, and he's been brilliant at 10 for Saracens, but it's another level up. And I thought after that first test, they just had to go with Johnny Sexton's composure and kind of guidance from 10. So I think he's certainly ahead of Farrell in that game management bracket still. Having said that, I think Farrell will get there eventually. He's considerably younger than Johnny Sexton. And he's a very impressive player who just had a bit of an off night tonight, aside from those penalties. I think he'll get better, but for me right now, Sexton just has more composure and kind of tactical intelligence. Yeah,
for sure. There's a question here as well, actually, regarding the scrum from Shane O'Sullivan. He says that he thought Crockett was driving down in the scrum that gave New Zealand the lead, but then he felt that Sinclair got the better of him after that. What did you make of that, actually? Because there did seem to be a fairly remarkable recovery in the scrummaging stakes from Sinclair, which would kind of lead you to believe that Shane here has a point.
Yeah, I thought the penalty was fair enough, really. I thought Sinclair was kind of off balance. I thought he didn't really get his feet in underneath him, and I thought it was an okay penalty. Yeah, those ones are always going to be contentious, and I mean, we talk about that penalty right at the end, but either one of those could have gone either way as well, and you know, that was a big moment in the match when Sinclair got pinged. But for me, I thought it was a fair penalty.
Yeah, understandable. Well, Murray, we better let you go before they lock you in there. But do you have one standout moment, one highlight from a personal perspective about this tour?
Yeah, well, for me, being down in Queenstown at the start of this week was magic. I think the players really enjoyed kind of switching off a little bit and taking in New Zealand. But it was an amazing 3 days. It's such a beautiful country, and I've really enjoyed every minute of it. They've been absolutely unbelievable hosts. New Zealand Tourism have been brilliant with us journalists, bringing us everywhere and showing us around the country. And it's an amazing place. I can't wait to come back. They're not as rugby mad. Well, obviously they're rugby mad, but they're able to enjoy themselves, the Kiwis as well. And there's always a bit of ribbing about the rugby off the pitch, but absolutely amazing place, and I can't wait to come back down here.
Sweet as. Well, we're looking forward to having you back here first anyway, Murray, but thanks a million as per usual, and we'll chat to you soon. That is all we've got time for on the Rugby Show here on the 42.ie. Last time New Zealand failed to win 2 consecutive tests on home soil, Viva Forever by the Spice Girls was top of the charts. Immortality indeed. But yeah, I mean, we will be back. I think, to be honest, still we can probably celebrate the Lions taking home half a trophy, can't we? Right, it's definitely time. Yeah, have a good weekend, and we'll be back later in the week. Until then, take it easy.